Welcome to Homa Studio Channel's Python for Beginners series, and we're going to continue what we were working on with some Python variables, just a little bit with integers, strings, and floats, just kind of combining them, and then also working on some math operators, just addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, floor division, and modulus. Welcome back to our math.py file. I'll open it up here in VS Code. And we just added together 5 and 2, not too exciting. Now, one thing I just want to point out before we go over some more operators is I mentioned that if you can put quotes around here, you make it a string, and it just makes it a character, so it's not really a number. So if you did that, if you had basically an integer and a string and you tried to add them, you'd have a problem. So if I go down here and I'll hit my up arrow and I'll run it, I'll get an error, and it says unsupported operand type for int and string. So it won't let you try to add together a string. It's like adding together a word and a number. It doesn't really work. It doesn't know how to do that. It's trying to do math, and it can't really do that. So the plus sign, it's usually looking for math. Now, if you did make this a string, if you made the 5 a string, it can actually put that together. It actually somewhat concatenates it. It just will put them side by side. It'll put a 5 and 2 together, just as there were two characters. They could be A and B, and you'd be putting together A and B. So if I'd run this again, and I could do the right click here and say run Python file and terminal, and there it says 5, 2. It says 52, but it's just 5 and 2. It's just putting the 5 character next to the 2 character. So you can put strings next to each other, and it'll add together integers as well. But you can't normally just combine two data types in an operation. So I'm going to go back and put this the way it was and just work with numbers right now. We're just going to go over some operators. So we did addition right here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put a comment, and in Python you could just use the pound sign, and I'm just going to say add. And when you hit return in VS Code, it puts another comment symbol, so I'm just going to take that out. But it shows up in green here, and I'll put a space just to divide these out. So we did addition here. So let's try something else. I'm going to highlight this whole little group here, and I'll do subtraction. Now this is easy, so this won't show a whole lot. So I'm going to do subtraction here, and I'll put an S here for subtraction, and I'll print out S, and I'll change my operator to the minus sign. That's why we don't use dashes in file names or variables. Well, file names you can, but in variables you don't want to use dashes because they're meant to be a minus sign. So I'm going to do that, and it's auto-saving, so notice that if that X is up there, that means it's saved. So let me run my Python file and terminal, and there it's 3. So it's doing 5 minus 2 is 3. So that works. That's simple. That's what you'd expect. Let's try another one. Let's multiply. And you're probably aware that you have to use a asterisk and not an X. And I'll put an M here for multiply. And I'll print out M. Make sure I change that as well. And now I have my third print statement that's here. And I'll right click and I'll run the Python file and terminal. And now I have 10. So it's running out 5 times 2 equals 10, so it's printing out 10. 7, 3, and 10. So that makes sense. Let's try division to use another operator. And again, I'll just put divide here, and I'll change the variable name to this kind of math statement to be a D. And I'll put a D down here to print out that math statement for divide. And I could hit new terminal and do it again. And now it's printing out 7, 3, 10, and 10. And what did I do wrong? Oh, I didn't put the divide symbol. I didn't actually put the operator. I'm talking about operators, and I didn't change it. So I want to put the forward slash. And let's do that again. Now it's doing 7, 3, 10, and 2.5. Now, one thing I just want to point out, it's when it divides X divided by Y, it's doing 5 divided by 2, and it's getting 2.5. It's actually making a float. Now, if I happen to use, if I go down here, and let me hit a new terminal again, and if I happen to just use Python, not Python 3, and I just did Python, and then math.py, and I hit enter, it's coming up with 2. So this is the fourth one here. It's coming up with 2, and that's because it's using Python 2.7, and 2.7 did division as what's called floor division, meaning it doesn't convert it into a decimal. And when we did it with Python 3, it does convert it into a decimal. And we want to stick to Python 3, so just be aware of that. You might not know that because it was doing some other Python 3 operations, But as far as that, it was doing it as Python 2.7, so just be aware of that. So the best thing to do might be to right-click here in this area when you're doing those. Now, speaking of floor division, let's do one that is floor division, just so we're aware of the difference. And I'll just call it FD for floor division, and I'll just type in floor. And floor division has the operator with 2 slashes. And I'll make sure I change this to FD as well, so we're printing out the right statement. Now floor divide, and I'm going to make sure I do it with Python 3, so I can even type Python 3 here just to make sure, and do math.py. And then I'll hit enter, and now I get 7 for the addition, 3 for the subtraction, 10 for the multiplication, 2.5 for division because it's converting it to a decimal, and then 2 is floor division. This is floor division. And the one last one I'll go over here is called a modulus. I'll just put modulus divide, and I'll just put MD. And what modulus does is it uses the percent, and it actually just comes up with the remainder. It comes up with the remainder of division. So if you know your math, 5 divided by 2 is going to be 2, 4 with a remainder of 1. So the answer to this, or the output to this, should be 1 when we do this again. So I'll do it over here. This time I'll do run Python file and terminal. And now I'm getting 7, 3, 10, 2.5, 2, and 1. So these are just our operators in math. We're using plus, we're using for addition, we're using minus for subtraction, asterisk for multiply, using / for divide, 2 / for floor divide. And you might use some of these to determine if something is an even or odd number and things like that. That's why you would use some of these, which we will later on in this series. So that's all I want to go over right now. So I'm going to stop here and keep this as a shorter video. Those are just some math operators in Python with just some basic print statements.